Hi guys, today I want to discuss and compare the intriguing advanced polygonal walls in Japan and Peru. The most famous Peruvian sites, such as Sacsayhuaman, Cusco, Machu Picchu and Ollantaytambo, have sparked much speculation and debate. These sites feature large stone walls with unique shaped boulders, which are fit together tightly without mortar. The interlocking stones are so closely spaced that a single sheet of paper will not fit in between them. Some of these stones used in Sacsayhuaman weigh 200 tons, which is astonishing. These Peruvian structures display a precision fitting that is unmatched in the Americas. Such extraordinary megalithic sites are credited to be the work of Incas from the 14th to 15th century. How were these walls constructed? How were these polygonal blocks created to fit with such amazing tight joints? How were the huge stones transported to site? To add to the mystery, on the other side of the world, Japan also has similar stone walls with blocks of various shapes and tight joints. These impressive Japanese polygonal walls belong to multiple feudal castles which date to the 17th century and onward. It's hard to overlook the similarities between the Japanese polygonal stone walls and the Peruvian ones, which makes us wonder, could these unique walls found on different hemispheres have been built with the same construction method? In this video, I'll compare and contrast the Japanese polygonal walls to the ones located in Peru. I'll talk about their commonalities and, more importantly, their major differences, which set the Japanese and Peruvian megalithic structures apart. The history and details of the Japanese polygonal walls illuminate evidence on their practice of construction, which differs from the ones used in Peru. Let's first examine the shared elements between these two. They both are constructed with non-uniform polygonal blocks without mortar, and the joints between blocks are very fine and accurate. Many stones at the sites in Japan and Peru are large and imposing. In my last video, I explained that the tremendous large stones at the Osaka Castle, like the biggest octopus stone, are slabs, not stone blocks. Hence, the Peruvian sites, hands down, have larger and heftier blocks compared with the Japanese counterparts. In Japan, the polygonal walls at the Edo Castle are built mostly with andesite, an igneous hard rock, typically falls between 6 and 7 on the Mohs scale. As for the blocks in Peruvian walls, some articles says that they are andesite, but others state that these are limestone. I watched a video of a geophysicist pouring acid over a material sample at Sacsayhuaman, and the stone dissolved completely. So the material of Sacsayhuaman is probably limestone of sort, not andesite. Limestone's hardness is about 3 to 4 on the Mohs scale, so the Japanese polygonal walls used harder rock. The origins of megalithic blocks at sites in Peru have long been a source of controversy. The high-precision joints, randomly placed protruding knobs, scraping marks, occasional indents, lack of chisel markings, combined with the rounded, bulging details of the blocks and the vast variety of their interlocking shapes, have puzzled scientists for decades. Many researchers have legitimately questioned the assertion that the Incas built these megalithic walls. At multiple sites, the visibly more advanced, bigger stone blocks with the precise fittings are at the bottom, while the crude inferior rubble structures are on top, which means the superior walls were built before the primitive ones. How did that happen? How did the more advanced construction technologies come first, before the cruder ones? If the Incas built these sites, why would they initially create the distinct, beautiful, and advanced walls and gates, and then pile untreated rubble on top? Why didn't they follow through with the same standards to these important structures? It's troublesome that at numerous sites, the well-crafted, custom-fit partial polygonal walls are located at the bottom, while the rudimentary stones were placed on top to complete these walls. Which work belongs to the Incas? Did the Incas find remnants of advanced polygonal walls and then decide to reuse and build along and on top of them? Which wouldn't be a surprise, as humans have been repurposing and reusing whatever is available throughout history. What if the more primitive portions of the structures are the actual work of the Incas, like the stone-stacked walls and buildings at Machu Picchu? These structures are grand, but their sophistication level is not nearly as remarkable as the advanced polygonal walls at other areas of Machu Picchu. The Incas had no written language. Their record-keeping only consists of a system of different knots tied in ropes attached to a longer cord. They had neither wheels nor carts. Therefore, they could not utilize draft animals to haul heavy stones. How were these colossal blocks transported from the quarry to the hilly site, each one carved accurately, then lifted and assembled with perfection? Without written language, there is no record to confirm the how, when, or by whom these striking, precise polygonal walls were built. Many claim that these impeccably fitted, bulging polygonal blocks were created with copper or bronze tools, or even stone hammers, which I disagree with. Not because the hardness of copper and bronze is about the same as limestone on the Mohs scale. A quick note, the Mohs scale basically measures resistance to scratches. There is a difference between a strong material and a hard material. A tool's Mohs scale hardness is only one reference factor that affects the effectiveness of stone processing. A whetstone with low hardness and even human hair can wear off steel. By the way, I found this video showing that a copper chisel can chip away limestone and dolomite. Blade edge, sharpness, abrasion resistance, level of force, and other properties attribute to the cutting performance as well. It's a complex topic and still being studied by researchers. Anyway, bronze or copper chisels can process limestone and possibly harder rock, even if the stone's hardness is higher than copper. However, that does not explain any of the following characteristics of Peruvian sites: lack of chisel or hammer marks and mostly smooth. Frequently seen scraping marks like scraping marks on uncured concrete, randomly placed protruding knobs, and rounded, bulging profiles. Why would the Incan workers take the extra effort to chisel gigantic stones to be bulging and evenly rounded? Considering the sheer sizes of some blocks, the immaculate fitting between blocks with curved seams, and rounded bulging quality, I think it's implausible that these Peruvian megalithic walls were built with a gas and check method of chipping at the blocks with hand tools, then setting the stones in place to see how each fit, lifting them up, chipping and sculpting further, and so on and so forth. In a previous video, I explained my hypothesis on how the polygonal walls of Sacsayhuaman were created, why they were most likely to have been cast rather than carved, and how the cast work generated unique shapes and ultra-fine joints. I recommend you to check this video out if you haven't done so. Now, about the polygonal walls in Japan. Do they provoke similar skepticism like the Peruvian ones? From afar, the walls from two different regions look alike, consisting of blocks in various shapes with minimal seams in between, except that the Japanese walls don't have knobs or scraping marks. Though with historical records and zoomed-in photos, we can find clues which reveal that the Japanese stone walls were built through a different nature. First, not all Japanese polygonal walls present the same level of precision. Peruvian polygonal walls are renowned for their superb accuracy at the smallest joints. The joints of many Japanese polygonal walls are not that perfect, especially at corner areas. Many have very nice fitting seams, but not as fine as the ones found in Peru. Japanese stone walls with large blocks usually have more obvious joints. The gaps between Japanese stone blocks are wider and more pronounced. The seams of many Japanese polygonal walls are not flawless like the ones of Peru. Of course, some Japanese walls do showcase highly accurate fittings and joints that are comparable with the Peruvian ones. Though there is a major difference. The Japanese version contains visible chisel marks, which indicates that the stones had been worked on with chisels and hammers. At times, Japanese use a special name for their best polygonal walls with fine finishes, which literally means the walls with makeup, a reference to people putting makeup on to beautify their appearances. These walls were created through careful chiseling and dressing to make the surfaces of the walls more beautiful. The method of dressing stone surfaces is widely used from ancient to modern masonry across the globe, which is to use tools to create visually pleasing patterns on stone. Before the invention of power tools, this was a time-consuming and painstaking job because it was done slowly by hand. That's why only walls at important locations with significant or symbolic meanings get to be styled with the chiseling makeup. From this photo of bright insight, jimmies, well executed, evenly spaced chisel marks are easy to spot. This finishing is called hazuri, which is a smoother and more delicate look with short chisel marks. Hazuri finishes are sometimes worn off due to over 300 years of weathering. Sudare is the other finish with vertical patterns which can be seen at various castles. So, unlike the walls in Peru, the Japanese polygonal walls were dressed with chisels and hammers. Then what about the polygonal feature? How were these non-uniform blocks shaped so precisely that they all fit together? On another note, there are no records on the construction of Peruvian megalithic sites. What about the Japanese walls? Are there documents on their building time and techniques? Not only were historical records on different stone wall types preserved, but also because Japanese masons have been meticulously maintaining and repairing their castles for centuries, the traditional stone shaping and fitting customs extended to and are still in practice today. There are YouTube videos on modern Japanese workers producing tightly fit walls with conventional hand tools. Stones are chiseled one by one to fit particular spots. A mason usually uses a pencil or chalk to mark on stone which parts need to be cut, then chisels following the markup. Once the spot is filled, the mason will move on to the next one. It sure is tenuous work, but the end result is a beautiful, precise polygonal wall with very thin joints. This tightly fitted stone jointing style is called kirikomi-hagi, which was developed around the early 17th century. It is considered in Japan as the ultimate form of stone processing technology, the most aesthetically attractive wall type, and in medieval Japan, a symbol of power. Prime examples of kirikomi-hagi can be seen at the Edo Castle, aka the Tokyo Imperial Palace. Stones were conscientiously cut with chisels and finished with sandpaper to make them tightly adhere to each other and stacked, leaving minimal gaps. As there are almost no gaps with this form of stacking, water cannot be effectively drained. Thus, these walls require separate drainage channels. Besides kirikomi-hagi, there are two other types of stone walls based on the degree of stone processing and stacking techniques, nozurazumi and uchikomi-hagi. Nozurazumi is the oldest method of stacking, followed by uchikomi-hagi. The two earlier types were still used after kirikomi-hagi stone walls appeared. Unlike the mysterious megalithic walls of Peru, the three categories of stone walls have been documented and were first mentioned in Japanese literature from the mid-Edo period. Nozurazumi refers to the simple stacked walls of natural unprocessed stones, with the earliest ones dated to the 15th century. These walls are often lower than 3 meters, have bigger cornerstones, and a rougher look. The large gaps between stones offer excellent drainage, but also warrant easier climbs for enemies. As time went on, the techniques for stacking and processing stones have improved and progressed to the next type of wall construction, uchikomi-hagi, which became the most common type of stone walls after 1600. It involved stacking processed stone with shaped corners and tighter joints, as they are more structurally stable. Bigger gaps between stones were carefully filled in with filler rocks. The wall surfaces are flatter and more uniformed. The upgraded technology made building high stone walls possible. Some reached to 20 to 30 meters high, which further strengthening the defensive functions of castles. As stone cutting and processing craftsmanship further advanced, Kirikomihagi stone walls emerged. Stones were thoroughly processed to desired surface shapes, so all blocks interlock with very tight joints. The Kirikomihagi walls are flat with almost no gaps. They look slick and modern. This type of walls became popular during the Edo period after the mid-17th century, since they had a more aesthetic appeal. As I mentioned earlier, point metal tools can process rocks that show a higher hardness on a mold scale. Ergo, it's possible that the medieval Japanese iron chisels can process hard rock, such as andesite. These types of walls are very difficult to achieve and require a large amount of financial and technical resources. Therefore, no castles were ever built solely using this method. Tokyo Imperial Palace used Uchikomihagi in combination with the Kirikomihagi stone walls. The labor-intensive Kurikomihagi was reserved only for areas where there was a need to look beautiful and majestic, for instance at gates or important walls, in order to illustrate authority of the castle owner, like the ruling shogun of Japan. If you come across a stone wall that was built with a lot of Kirikomihagi joints, then that wall is likely where a gate used to be. Since creating polygonal walls with very tight joints is laborious and costly, it's not uncommon to see only the facing sides of stone gates or walls having received a more prestigious finishing. Sometimes walls stacked in different techniques can be seen side by side. Most Japanese castle walls are retaining walls. They're backed by a layer of pebbles and then earth mounds. Here is a photo exhibiting the side and back of a Kirikomihagi wall. We can see that the stones are wedge-shaped. Only the exposed sides were chiseled to create a precise fit on the surface. At Kanazawa Castle, there are displays of the inner compositions of various stone walls like Kirikomihagi. Again, exposed sides of stone blocks have been processed to be clean and neat, though the parts that are embedded in the walls show rough chisel marks. This is another difference from the Peruvian polygonal walls. Here are photos showing blocks of Sacsayhuaman that either fell off, moved out of their original positions, or its adjacent blocks got removed, thus exposing their previously embedded sides. We can see that for most of these loose blocks, their supposedly hidden sides, the back, top, or sides, are as smooth as the front. There are no chisel or hammer marks on them. If the Peruvian polygonal walls were truly created through cutting stone to fit, then there is no reason for masons to take the effort to make all the buried sides to be equally smooth, with no tool marks. This evidence further bolsters my hypothesis that the Peruvian polygonal blocks are cast concrete or the geopolymer kind, not carved stone. The advanced megalithic sites in Peru have no historical records, and the more superior constructions predate the crude stonework. As a comparison, the Japanese polygonal walls have contemporaneous documentations. They are recognizable advancing and progression in stone techniques and wall construction, which eventually lead to the tightly fitted polygonal walls that showed up in the 17th century. The exposed Japanese fronts show chisel marks and sometimes daimyo engravings, and the embedded, buried parts also have undeniable hand tool markings. On the basis of the above evidence, we can derive that the Japanese polygonal walls originated from centuries of masonry development and hard work. These magnificent stone walls are iconic symbols of ancient Japan's architectural and masonry ingenuity. Despite the fact that these manually created Japanese walls are top-notch, in general, their joint fittings are inferior to the ones found at the advanced Peruvian polygonal walls, and the Japanese stone blocks are less massive. Why is that? I believe this is because the Peruvian polygonal walls were not built by hand tools, but through a completely different method, by a lost technology that pre-existed the Incas. The innovative high-precision polygonal walls at sites at Sacsayhuaman, Cusco, Machu Picchu, and Ollantaytambo were not built with natural stone. They were cast, not carved. The tight joints and smooth finishing on almost all sides of the blocks are generated by placing semi-cured dry cast concrete blocks in place and then applying pressure from the top and sides to squeeze these Play-Doh-like blocks together. This way, the material will fill in the voids, thus producing these perplexing non-uniformed shapes, tight joints, and bulging appearances. So, these polygonal walls that existed on different hemispheres that resemble each other are actually not similar. The Japanese ones resulted from dedicated and precise human labor, while the Peruvian ones possibly were created by a previous unknown civilization before the Incas, which possessed incredible concrete and construction abilities. What do you think? If you have any insights, please leave me a comment. If you like my video, please subscribe to my channel and share with others. You can also support me on Patreon, which is a monthly charge, or on Buy Me a Coffee. I appreciate your support. This is Curious Being. I'm Tina. Thanks for watching and see you next time.